And now we move actually down the hall for a reflection on this morning's theme from Barbara Barnett Stewart.
So for my English literature coursework in college, I did a concentration in myth and folklore. So I ended up reading a lot of creation stories from various cultures. There was, of course, the Bible story in which the Judeo-Christian God creates the world in 7 days. I read the Dine Bahane, which is the Navajo creation myth, where the first people climb upward through different worlds, the fourth and final of which is this world, where the Navajo live now. One creation story I've always loved for its really high weirdness factor is from the Finnish Kalevala. It's where the air goddess Ilmatar lies down in the primal waters, only the waters in the sky exist at this point, and she becomes magically pregnant, because Christians aren't the only ones with virgin births in their mythology. A bird lays eggs on her knee, and where the bird comes from when the rest of the world hasn't been created yet is kind of a plot hole. But the eggs grow hot, Ilmatar becomes uncomfortable and shifts, the eggs fall off and break, and their fragments end up forming the land and the sun and the moon and the stars. And then Ilmatar, after being pregnant for 730 years, yikes, she gives birth to the first man, Wainamoinen. But here is my favorite creation story. Once upon a time, all that existed of the universe was a tiny little ball, and that ball was really dense and really hot. Then there was an explosion, and everything that had been in that little ball just expanded at unimaginable speeds before finally slowing down and cooling and starting. And okay, I'm describing the Big Bang now, and I'm wearing my little space rock necklace in celebration of the Big Bang. Unlike the first few stories I mentioned, the Big Bang isn't myth or religion, it's science. You'd find it in the nonfiction section of the bookstore. But it does have something in common with the Book of Genesis and the Navajo's Dine Bahane and the Finnish Kalevala. It is a really cool story. In fiction, a plot in its simplest definition is what happened. Viewed that way, scientific theory, though not fiction, still involves storytelling. Scientists take all the facts, they take all the data, and they piece it together to figure out what kind of story the data tells. The Big Bang Theory is scientists' way of, sorry, let me try that sentence again. The Big Bang Theory is scientists taking what we know about the universe and saying, based on the evidence, here's how we think the universe was created. Here's what happened. Here is the plot. So here's another good story, at least I think it is. I'm a big Doctor Who fan, and I have lots of toys like this to prove it. And there's an episode of Doctor Who called The Big Bang that inspired my reflection this morning. I'm not going to try to explain the plot in detail because, as one character aptly says early on, this is where it gets complicated. But here's the nutshell version. The universe is on the verge of destruction, as it often is in Doctor Who. But our protagonist, the Doctor, he saves it through what he calls the Big Bang 2. Basically, there's this box that contains an imprinted memory of the universe. So the Doctor steers that box into the heart of a massive explosion, so massive that the imprinted memory is propagated simultaneously to every point in history, and the universe is thus restored. But there's a cost. To do this, the Doctor has to sacrifice his place in the universe. His time stream begins to unravel, and as he's being flung through moments from his past, he tells a younger version of his traveling companion, Amy, when you wake up, you'll have a mom and dad, and you won't even remember me. Well, you'll remember me a little. I'll be a story in your head. That's okay. We're all stories in the end. Just make it a good one, eh? And then he disappears and is forgotten for a bit. Eventually, Amy does remember the Doctor, and for complicated, timey-wimey reasons, her memory is able to bring him back. She says, I found you in words, like you knew I would. That's why you told me the story. Despite being a science fiction show, that Doctor Who episode is less about the science of the Big Bang and more about the power of story. But like the Big Bang, Stories are a form of creation. If you think about Genesis in the Bible, what is the first step of creation? The word. God says, "Let there be light." The Judeo-Christian God literally narrates our world into existence. Now, some stories are, of course, more factual than others, but even the far-fetched ones still have truths about the human condition at their core, because they were created by humans as they tried to understand themselves and their place in the world. And I think that's another way Unitarian Universalists can celebrate the Big Bang, by exploring all forms of creation and how they connect to that big, explodey, sciencey one that got us all here. And now that you're done listening to me, it's time to listen to our prelude.
And what a wonderful way to celebrate this, excuse me, this occasion. I have another way that I want to celebrate with you, and that is that we talked about how our sources all talk about creation stories and all from different faith traditions. But what you might not know is our planets are also connected to the promises and the values that we hold. Let me share this little poem with you. Mars is the red planet where atmosphere is thin, where aliens and Martians could join us as kin. We remember our first promise to have respect for all. Maybe one day those aliens will give us a call. Jupiter has some orange spots, and even though it's large, it still sits among others and can't be in charge. We remember our second promise to offer treatment kind and fair. Even when we're the biggest, doesn't mean we don't care. Venus may appear yellow, it's bright in the night sky. It is one of a kind and always takes its time. We remember our third promise, yearn to accept things and learn. We take time and keep moving, and each take a turn. Mercury is kind of green, and one that is small. Its temp keeps on changing, it rises and falls. We remember our fourth promise, grow with things true and right. We know we keep changing and follow the light. Uranus is blue, covered in rocks and ice. It's solid and steady, and its chemicals unite. We remember our fifth promise, believe our ideas and then act. We stand solid and speak up, and that is a fact. Neptune's indigo, far away and hard to see. It was first found by math, so it seemed like a dream. We remember our sixth promise, insist on a world fair and free. With justice for everyone, we stand up for peace. Earth does not look violet, but it has other things, people and creatures and beautiful trees. We remember our seventh promise, value Earth, it's our home. We stay connected to all things wherever we roam. Saturn has many colors and elements abound. It's got unique rings and moons all around. We remember our eighth promise, our newest, to honor equity for all. We journey toward welcome, lifting up those who fall. So now when we look up to the planet so high, we can remember our promises, if only we try. For Big Bang Holiday can be with us every day. Now UU's all over. Shout bazinga and hooray.
Thank you, Ms. Paula. Bazinga and hooray. Every summer, we set a theme for each month of the coming program year. The program year starts in September, looking into the future as well as we know how, bringing our intention into the process. The themes are designed to set the tone for focus and coherence across Sunday worship, fellowship groups, lifespan faith engagement, and other programs in our life as a faith community. And sometimes, I think, we get it right. The theme for this month of January 2022 is simplicity. Simplicity is a gift we may seek and cultivate as we move into a new year as we celebrate beginnings of all sorts, and as we seek to ground ourselves into the core of being that energizes our presence in the world. One of my mentors consistently encourages me to set my intention for each new year, and I pretty consistently find myself resisting doing that, perhaps especially this year when so much feels topsy-turvy as our society pivots and divides and pivots yet again in response to culture and politics and to the ongoing progress of the COVID virus that has invaded our planet from within. Setting an intention now feels like doing so in a bounce house, intending to move in a certain direction while trying to keep my balance on a surface that waves and changes under my feet. It took me a while to settle down to it, but finally I found a quiet time and looked within to see what my deepest intention for this time might be. What emerged from me was an intention to live with joy and gratitude and to generate simplicity and coherence in my life. Joy, gratitude, simplicity, and coherence. Whatever this changing world might hold in days and months to come, holding that intention works for me. I hope you will be able to observe me living into my intention here, and I hope you will find your own ground of intention for moving into the unknown that continues to unfold around us. And so today, we celebrate the birthday of the universe. As you've heard, this rather uniquely UU holiday has become part of our tradition here over the past 3 years, and it was the brainchild of one of our own children, as that young leader reminded us that we are a faith community that celebrates scientific knowledge and progress right along with the awe and wonder we experience as we live in this amazing universe. Our UU faith is grounded in 7, becoming 8, principles or value statements called by the children's program Promises, and Ms. Paula explored those principles and promises as we can see them in our own solar system, one promise for each planet. And as we can read on the UUA website, we live out these principles within a living tradition of wisdom and spirituality, drawn from sources as diverse as science, poetry, scripture, and personal experience. The 6 sources that our faith affirms and promotes include our direct experience of transcending mystery and wonder, as well as the guidance of reason and the results of science, along with teachings from the world's religious traditions and wisdom from prophetic people throughout time. As Reverend Kathleen Rollens is quoted on the UUA website, "Throughout history, we have moved to the rhythms of mystery and wonder, prophecy, wisdom, teachings from ancient and modern sources, and nature herself." End quote. And so it is consistent with our religious nature as a people of faith to celebrate the origins of the universe, the science of physics and cosmology, the mystery of the Big Bang, and all our awe and wonder as we contemplate the heavens above us. We live now in times that are so complicated, with so much in the present and the future unknown and unpredictable, with so many divisions in our nation, our communities, and even within our families, that it seems only right that we celebrate the simple fact that anything exists at all. And that simple fact of existence is the mystery of the Big Bang, the origin of the universe. Somehow, everything that exists emerged from nothing, from a state of pure potential. Pure potential, what could be simpler? There was nothing, and then there was everything. End of story. Well, even scientists cannot imagine that the universe actually went spontaneously from nothing to everything. So they postulate that there was what they call a singularity, a primordial quantum vacuum, an infinitesimally compact spot of potential. This tiniest of spots was somehow the ultimate nothing, and at the same time had all of everything packed into a space unimaginably small. And then, for reasons unknown, the force of gravity, which usually pulls things together, reversed itself to push everything out, creating an explosive outward motion that today we call the Big Bang. But even our best cosmological science has no real explanation for what existed before the Big Bang. Call it a singularity, a quantum vacuum, or a point of pure potential, does not really convey meaning in our ordinary reality, and we have no explanation for what caused gravity to turn itself inside out and push with so much power that it's all still moving outward at mind-boggling speeds 14 billion years later. We can say what we think happened, but we really have no idea why. I accept the science, and I'm good with the idea of a singularity of pure potential and with gravity behaving in unexpected ways, but it really does not explain the origin of the universe with much more clarity than the religious teachings that have been around for millennia, long before our modern science. Those religious teachings tell us that before there was anything, there was a power, a presence, an eternal entity, an entity called by many names in many languages, but in our language most often called God or Goddess. And in most of the stories, that eternal, solitary God or Goddess got lonely and decided to create a universe so they would not be a singularity alone. To me, that seems like the same story as the science, only with a personality attached. Imagining the singularity of pure potential as having a personality and feelings, as being lonely and deciding to create all this, somehow feels more approachable to our human way of understanding things. And in either case, a quantum vacuum or a divine person, it is a wonder, a miracle and a mystery. As physicist Marcelo Gleiser wrote back in 2013, quote, "Sometimes we must have the humility to accept that our modes of explanation have limits, and make peace with what we can do, and marvel at how much we can do without the pretense of knowing everything." End quote. Gleiser's comment really got me thinking and wondering, how do we find the humility to accept our limits, to make peace with the incomplete nature of what science can understand, and to accept the constantly evolving nature of our knowledge, even as we experience awe at the wonder of it all and marvel at how we can live quite well without the pretense of knowing everything. And so I find myself drawn back to my own intentions for this turbulent, challenging year that lies ahead, to live with joy and gratitude, and to generate simplicity and coherence in my life. I find myself wanting to be intentional in appreciating the power of science and experiencing my awe and wonder in the presence of mystery. I want to be intentional about cultivating experiences of joy and about making space for gratitude, especially for the people in my life. And in my intention to generate simplicity and coherence, I hope to bring more love and kindness, more grace and wisdom into everything I do and to every life I touch. And I wish for each of you, in your own way, your own place and time, the gift of intentions thoughtfully set and generously cultivated, so we may thrive in this Big Bang universe, in this world so filled with mystery and so ripe with potential. Even in all our complexities, there is good and abundant reason to celebrate the birthday of the universe, to celebrate the simplicity of pure potential, perhaps in the person of a deity, perhaps not, to be grateful for the mysterious quantum vacuum, the potential that somehow was, the nothing that somehow expanded to create all we know. To celebrate that for unknown reasons, something went bang and exploded out into everything that was about 14 billion years ago. To remain humble in the presence of so much we do not know and understand. To celebrate that we are part of that miraculous existence, that we have the gifts of consciousness and intelligence with which we seek to comprehend the cosmos and all it contains. And what is a celebration, after all, without dancing? And so now, in our birthday celebration, Miss Paula leads us in a dance break. Woohoo! Bazinga!